All right, everybody, welcome into the Bleacher Report app. It is a Green with Envy post-game NBA Cup special edition. Can you feel it? NBA Cup fever is abound right now. Celtics Bulls just wrapped up an offensive shootout. Celtics get a 138-129 victory. What does it all mean for the NBA Cup? What happened in this game? There's a lot to get into. So start getting those comments going. Let's have some fun here. This is Green with Envy. Let's lock in. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into those of you joining us here on the Bleacher Report app. We are joining you live after a Celtics 138-129 victory over the Chicago Bulls in NBA Cup play. We are the Green with MB podcast. My name is Will Weir. How you doing? How you living? Joining me today to talk about what's happening in real time with the NBA Cup and what just happened on a live action game of the floor is lava between the Boston Celtics and the Chicago Bulls is my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Vanakis. Greg, we've got two different ways to approach this here. So I'm going to give you kind of a choose your own adventure here of how we want to go about this. So it's an NBA Cup game. So we can dive right in to the NBA Cup implications and try to honestly sort that out in real time. I'm going to have to pull up my calculator here to kind of see where we're at. Or we can jump into the game first, talk about that, and then head into the NBA Cup and what it all means. Which way do you want to go? Pick your poison.
I kind of want people in the chat to drop comments just to kind of like guide us to what we should talk about, because the NBA Cup, dude, I know some people are just like, no, it's easy. It's just like point differential. You just got to figure it out. Like I can't do the math. I don't even want to think about all of the implications.
I think I have a way. I think I have a way that to solve this that I want to save for the end here when we kind of get into, because we're 2 years into the NBA Cup. So I want to talk a little bit at the end just of where we're at. How do we think that this experiment is going and what we can maybe do to improve it? And I think I have something that can help to solve your issue there. So let's start with this game here, because we're actually waiting on the Pacers and Pistons, which may have just went final. That's actually also going to play into it. So let's give NBA.com a chance to update some of the standings a little bit to help us with the math so that we can try to get to the explanation. But NBA Cup game tonight, Celtics Bulls. The implications going into the game. Let's start there. Celtics were 2-1. Bulls were 2-1. Earlier in the day, the Hawks beat the Cavs. So the Cavs have 3 losses all year. 2 of them are to the Hawks in the last week. The Hawks have beaten the Cavs twice and the Celtics. So the Hawks right now are, with the Celtics winning, are moving on. The Hawks are advancing as the winners of Group East C. That we know based on the results today. Going into the game, however, if the Bulls had won this game, they would have been the winners of Group C. The Celtics, because they lost to the Hawks, they need some help. So we're going to get into that here in just a minute. But focusing on this game here, Greg, absolute shootout between two offensive teams here, between the Celtics and the Bulls, 138-129. You and I were texting at one point, and this kind of felt like a game that could get away from the Celtics, right? This was a lot of hot shooting from the Chicago Bulls from, not all. I mean, Nikola Vucevic was really good in this. And by the way, if you can get him for 2 second-round picks, clearly he's got some defensive deficiencies, shall we say, which were exploited in this game. But, he was on fire, 6 of 9. He's been shooting the ball very, very well this season. The theoretical version of Vucevic has been more realistic this year with the way the Bulls have played, but they got some really hot shooting from guys like Torrey Craig and Talen Horton-Tucker that really took the top off here. But the Celtics were able to sneak away here, 138-129. Do you want to start here with the Celtics offensively and go to their fourth quarter hero, or where do you want to go here, Greg?
Yeah, we got to start with Peyton Pritchard.
Let's go. It's Peyton F. and Pritchard.
A couple of weeks ago. Yeah, a couple of weeks ago when we were here live on Bleacher Report app, we threw out there Peyton Pritchard, sixth man of the year candidate. Got a lot of people talking in the comments and everything. So I'm excited for everyone to talk about the continued Peyton Pritchard, sixth man of the year, not candidacy, but just like likelihood that Peyton Pritchard, if he continues on this level, he is by far, in a way, going to be the sixth man of the year. Peyton Pritchard tonight, Will, 10 for 16 from the field in a game in which Derek White sneakily goes down with a foot injury, right? So Peyton Pritchard, somebody needed to step up. And I was actually wondering, we went double big tonight. Are we going to finish the game in a double big setting with Porzingis and Horford? Peyton Pritchard said, we're going small with Peyton Pritchard running the show, right? So he goes 10 for 16 from the field in this game, 7 for 11 from three, 29 points, 7 rebounds, 4 offensive rebounds, an assist and a steal. Peyton Pritchard this year has only 4 games in which he has less than 2 threes in games. So 1 3, I think he has 3 times, and then 0 threes 1 time. He has 9 games of 4 or more threes, 8 games of 5 or more threes, and 4 games of 6 or more threes. That's all including tonight. I mean, do we have not the sixth man of the year, but the best backup point guard in the league?
I mean, I've got to really think about this. I don't know if you texted me this or maybe you tweeted out. I can't remember, but I think the answer might be yes, right? Because I think for the last couple of years, Tyus Jones, who's been a guy that we've been a fan of on this podcast, kind of fit that bill. He's starting out in Phoenix now. I mean, I'd have to dig in a little bit more, but I think it might be. And this is kind of what we've been circling with Peyton Pritchard for a little bit. And this year, it's become a very real question: is what could Peyton Pritchard, and I think the answer is yes, could Peyton Pritchard be a starter on a playoff team elsewhere in the NBA? I think the answer is yes, right? I think at least right now, certainly feels like that would be ridiculous to say the answer is no to that question. So to your point, I think it's hard to make a case that he is not the best backup point guard. And to one of the questions we got in the chat here, is PP a lock for sixth man? I think it's too early to call it a lock just because we're about just under a quarter of the way into the season, and a lot can happen. Got to make sure you hit the 65 game mark, of course, make sure you stay healthy. So I think it's too early to call it a lock, but there's zero question. Buddy Hield's cooled off, Trey Mann, the Hornets, Naz Reid's in the conversation. The Wolves are struggling again. I don't know if they won or not tonight. They squeezed one out, it looks here, against the Clippers tonight. That team is struggling. Peyton Pritchard is not only just contributing, he's changing games. This was something we talked about on our last podcast, right? Is that he changes the momentum and the energy of this. And tonight, with Derek White going out, the Celtics needed somebody to step up. In that first half, it was Jalen, it was Jason, it was Kristaps, it was Derek, and a whole lot of nothing, basically, from everyone else offensively. I think Peyton had 5 first half points, and that was about it. He had 24 points in that second half, getting that opportunity, and he's absolutely, I mean, we're leading the show right now. Just Jason Tatum had 35 points, 14 rebounds, and 5 assists, and we're leading with Peyton Pritchard. That tells you everything you need to know about the impact he had on this game.
Yeah, and I think with Tatum, let's transition there. You just read his stat line. He was the best player on the court, right? 12 for 18 from the field, 4 of 8 from 3. But it was Peyton Pritchard who stole the show, and he's having these moments, right? You even saw it in college with Peyton Pritchard. He would have these moments where he would just go bananas for. He went to Baylor, right? No, Oregon. Sorry, it was good. Yeah,
Oregon. Went to Oregon, correct.
Yeah, he went to Oregon. I knew it was a green team. So at Oregon, he would have all.
Creighton's blue, by the way, but yeah.
What?
Creighton's blue, but yeah, continue.
Oh no, I didn't say Creighton, but anyways, yeah, Peyton Pritchard, he's having these moments where the Pro Am P where he scores 90 points, the Summer League P where he's the best player. I think his 3rd year in the league, he was still balling out in Summer League. He just loves to hoop, and now Drew Carter's dropping Public Park P. There's just like all these moments where Peyton Pritchard is just loving to play basketball, and he's doing it at the highest level. But let's transition and talk about Jason Tatum a little bit, because the impact of Tatum on the boards tonight, we talked about this coming into the year. Jason Tatum over rebounds was basically a lock. He's had a couple games just with the way that things have panned out where he's had to guard bigger guys this year. So the rebounds aren't as available. He's not able to fly in off the wings and get some of those rebounds. But tonight he was doing all the dirty work. 14 rebounds for Jason Tatum. What are you seeing out of Tatum as he continues to be the second best player in the league by a long shot, but there's just no way he's catching Jokic.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the all-around versatility of Tatum's game, right? This is what is his superstar power, is he's above average to great at almost every single skill set that you can think of, right? And so, I think it's interesting, especially in a game like this. So teams like the Bulls that basically played one big man. I know Jalen Smith got 14 minutes here, but for the most part, the Bulls were playing with one big man all night, right? In Vucevic. And so these are the type of teams where, we saw Joe Mazzulla try to go double big for a little bit, didn't really work. And that was the question that you asked with Peyton Pritchard on such a heater. Are they going to close with that double big lineup? And it's nights like this, especially when the Celtics play these teams that push the pace. This was kind of similar to the way that the Pacers pushed the Celtics last year, right? With their pace, getting a bunch of trying to match the 3-point velocity and the 3-pointers on each side of the ball. That kind of, I mean, the Pacers gave us trouble last year. Let's just say that is what happened last year. And in this game, it felt like the Bulls, certainly they were in it throughout. They had a chance to definitely win this game. But when they don't have those other bigs, and we don't want to go double big because that's going to play into the scheme of what the Bulls are trying to accomplish, it's Tatum being able to have 14 rebounds. And, I know he got called for one goaltend, did another one that was questionable, right, of where he got called for a goaltend, but he's able to provide some semblance of rim protection. And so in these type of games, he's able to be your second big to Kristaps or to Al Horford or Neemias Queta, who got some run in the fourth quarter and played well, so that you can still feel like you're big enough, you can take advantage, and you have a guy that can perform like Jason Tatum in scenarios like this, because that's what adds to the versatility that is the Celtics ceiling, right? That they can play double big, they can play with one big, but they can still have Tatum as a small forward, power forward out there. It just unlocks all the other options the Celtics have, especially on a night where Derek White goes down and you still want to roll with Peyton Pritchard and not feel like you have to be forced to go big because you're too small, because you're going even smaller, going from Derek White to Peyton Pritchard, but he can hold his own. He has 7 boards and 4 of them on the offensive end.
Yeah, Pritchard was awesome. Let's talk about Derek White a little bit, though. How concerned are you with Derek White's foot injury?
Do you know when it happened? I know the report came out kind of like mid third quarter-ish. I didn't see anything happen on the court, so I was a little caught off guard by the notifications on Twitter. I mean, I want to hear a little bit more. As of right now, it depends on the severity. I mean, Derek White, aside from the Jays, might be the most important player on this team, I would venture to say. And so it would be concerning if it's long term. I just don't know enough at this point, and I didn't really see the play to have a gut reaction to I'm very concerned or what to really make of it at this point.
Well, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 games ago, he had a moment where he was kind of limping up and down the court for like 4 possessions in a row. I can't remember which game it was, but it was definitely a little concerning. But there was nothing reported after the game. Coming into this game, this was the first time the Boston Celtics had a completely clean injury report, right? So clearly it wasn't severe enough for them to even list it on the injury report. And there are like implications for not listing injuries on injury reports, I believe. I don't know if it's the same in the NBA as it is in the NFL, but with Derek White's injury, it's definitely concerning, just because Derek White is, he's such a baller. Derek White doesn't miss games. He's always on the court. He's always playing big minutes. And it takes a lot to get him off the court. I'm wondering if part of the reason why they held him out of the rest of the game is because the Celtics schedule is so hectic over the next 7 days, right? Where they're playing 5 games in 7 nights or whatever it is. So I'm wondering if part of that was just precautionary, considering we had the full complement of players tonight, right? We had everybody else available, so there was no real reason for him to push it. But like you said, we don't have enough information at this time. But if Derek White is out for an extended period, I agree. I believe Derek White is, the third most important player on the Celtics, as the Celtics proved last year. Without Porzingis, you could make the argument it's Porzingis, but we made it through the entire playoffs basically without him, right? He's kind of that extra X factor that just makes it a cheat code for the Celtics. But day to day, I think Derek White is pretty irreplaceable.
Yeah, we're on the same page with that. And, you mentioned the schedule. The schedule's hectic, right? You include tonight's game. They get a day off tomorrow on Saturday. And then it's Sunday at Cleveland, home at Miami on Monday, day off on Tuesday, Detroit on Wednesday, who's not a joke. Detroit has been playing some really good basketball, and they beat the Pacers by quite a bit, which we're going to talk about here in just a second. Another day off, and then a back-to-back Friday in Memphis, both in Boston, both at home. So that's nice. But Milwaukee, who's turning things around, and Giannis is always going to be lurking. And then Memphis, should be the first time Marcus Smart plays in a return to Boston. So that's a lot. That's a lot coming up this week for the Celtics here. And so, Greg, before we transition into trying to figure out where we go from here with the NBA Cup, where we're at and where we go from here with what needs to happen for the Celtics to continue, I want to finish on the game with this here. In being the coach of our podcast, I said it that it felt like the Bulls felt a little bit how the Pacers games felt against the Celtics last year, but the Bulls, played a hell of an offensive game. But is this more the Bulls and, guys like Taylor Horton Tucker and Torrey Craig shooting kind of above their weight limit? Or did you see some defensive issues with the Celtics that give you a little bit of pause?
They called it out on the broadcast. I think their ability to get like up into guys, like if you watch enough NBA basketball, when teams are like really locked in on the defensive end, where every pass is contested out in the perimeter, like all of the rotations are crisp. There's no mismatches that teams aren't scrambling out of, right? Yeah. Like if Vucevic is, setting a screen and rolling down the middle of the paint and Peyton Pritchard's on him, the Celtics are going to scram that out, right? They've done that since the Isaiah Thomas days. That became like a staple of NBA defenses. So I honestly think it's just an effort thing. I don't think the Bulls push the pace at the level that the Pacers did last year, just like in terms of like their identity of a team. And I think that's because they don't have the point guard to do it, right? They don't have Kobe White is their point guard, de facto point guard, but an ideal world, I think it would probably be Lonzo Ball. Josh Giddey did a good job tonight doing what he does.
Giddey threw some dimes, man. I was gonna say Giddey might be who nice. I think of, but yeah.
But I think like Lonzo Ball and Giddey, like if they are really pushing the pace for that team, that's when they can really be unlocked. But when you compare that to the Pacers and Halliburton being able to like hunt switch pockets and shoot 30-footers, like neither of those guys can do that, right? So I think they're not as top level talent, I believe, as the Pacers are. So I think the Celtics just came into this game a little lackadaisical. Anytime you hit 9 3-pointers in the first quarter and you don't face much pressure from the defense, you just think you're going to win the game and win it handily when you're the defending champs. They had to lock in. I like these games where they get tested. And then I also love Joey Jiu-Jitsu at the end of the game. Crazy Joe Mazzulla deciding with 1 second left to call the timeout because he's aware of the point differential. Joe gets it. Joe gets the NBA Cup. I might not get it. Billy Donovan sure as heck doesn't get it, but he calls a timeout, draws up a play. I think they were trying to go to Peyton Pritchard, like an elevator screen out to half court, just for a half court open shot. And they go to Sam Hauser, who hits a shot very reminiscent of Larry Bird in the playoffs all those years back.
Yeah, and number one, Joe Mazzulla was falling, like stumbling onto the court to get that timeout with whatever it was, 1.5 seconds left, because you just got to get those different points in there, and we'll talk about that. And for Sam Hauser to hit that shot, I was watching the game, Sam is still finding little ways to contribute with hustle, but he's really still struggling, whether it's that back or whatever it is, to find consistency in that 3-point shot. And he had a couple really good looks in this game. And of course, the one look he hits is this crazy turnaround buzzer beater, can barely even, square up to see the rim, and gets it to go here. And that's his only shot that he makes of the entire night, coming into the game cold, because Joe Mazzulla called the timeout to get the Celtics point differential up. So with that, let's attempt to talk about the NBA Cup and what it means. So
people, hold on. People, get your calculators, get your abacuses, get your pens, your paper, everything you need to try and figure this out with us.
Just in case, have everything at your disposal. Okay, so with this, Celtics beat the Bulls. The Hawks have won East Group C. So we know the Hawks are in the quarterfinals. That is the one thing that we know heading into Tuesday night. That is guaranteed. The Celtics finish NBA Cup group play at 3-1 with a plus 23 point differential. Other results that matter tonight are going to be the Pacers-Pistons game, where, Greg, you already mentioned here that the Pistons kind of put a beating on the Pacers, and I'm not going to lie, I put a little bit of scratch on that because I like that Pistons team. 130 to 106, a beatdown from the Pistons over the Pacers. So what this is setting up on Tuesday night are two games that the Celtics are going to have to pay attention to that are going to determine their fate if they advance in NBA Cup group play or into the quarterfinal round here. So Magic and Knicks both are 3-0. The Magic have a plus 60 point differential. So without being an actual lock, they are basically a lock, win or lose, based on point differential to go into the next round. So in that Knicks Magic matchup, we have to be rooting for the Magic to beat the Knicks, right? That's the one kind of non-negotiable for Tuesday night, is that the Magic absolutely have to beat the Knicks. And if the Magic beat the Knicks, their point differential can only go from plus 15 to plus 14, even if they lose by 1. So that would eliminate the Knicks. So that has to happen. If the Knicks beat the Magic, unless they somehow win by whatever that would be, 37, 40 points, whatever that math has to be, they're not getting in. So that has to happen come Tuesday night. Then you go down to the Bucks and the Pistons. The Pistons, with that win over the Pacers, they're now 3-0 at plus 28. The Bucks are 3-0 at plus 29. And this is going to be the one where it gets a little bit weird, because either team can win and the Celtics will still have a chance. But what they're going to need is that whoever loses that game is under a plus 23 point differential. So whoever loses that game, I believe, if I'm doing this correctly, needs to win by either 6 or 7, depending on if it's the Bucks or Pistons, I guess, because it's plus 29 and plus 28 for those teams respectively. So watching the Bucks Pistons and what that score is going to dictate whether or not the Celtics advance. The simplest of this all.
For a kid who had to take biology 3 times in high school, you're doing a hell of a job here.
Hey man, there's no biology involved in this. That's why we can kind of wrap our head around it here. But so basically, Magic have to beat the Knicks, Bucks, Pistons. It's gonna come down to by whoever wins that game and by how much. It's the NBA Cup, folks. Are you excited? I don't know, Greg. Is this working for you?
You got the music? Can you play the music? Because I think
I think we need a little bit for those that are not indoctrinated. Anytime we talk about the NBA Cup here, we gotta jazz it up a little bit. So let's cue it. NBA Cup, folks. Gotta love it. For real, Greg, how are you feeling about the NBA Cup? I genuinely kind of want to have this conversation about just the NBA Cup in general. You into it? You feeling it? This is the end of the second year of group play. Give me your thoughts.
I like it, man. I like it. It's different. I'm a NBA lifer and a diehard, so I'm going to watch the games regardless. But it's something new, man. Anytime you get something new to kind of get you excited about watching not the Celtics games. I'm always going to be super excited to watch the Celtics games, but now I'm going to be tuning into a Bucks Pistons game. There's no way I was watching a Bucks Pistons game last year, right? Then we got to watch the Magic and Knicks. There's a chance I would have watched that, but as a dad of a 5-month-old baby who has a lot of needs and needs a lot of attention, I'm going to figure out a way to carve out time to watch these games. And I don't think I would have done that. I would have used the excuse of the 5-month-old to avoid watching a Bucks Pistons game. But now I'm going to lock in. I'm really excited about it. I love that the Celtics are kind of hanging around, so that now we have to do a little bit of math. You have the Mancala boards out, whatever you got to do to figure it out. And it's just kind of fun, man. And I also love seeing, the teams that you maybe the NBA was expecting to do well. Right? Like maybe they were expecting the Cavs to be involved. It's the Hawks. The Hawks come out of Group C. Like last year, the Pacers, the Pelicans, they're in Vegas. The Pacers and Pelicans are in Vegas. I think that's cool for small market teams. Maybe the NBA Cups, as they're selling it, is the Emirates Cups. Maybe they want some really big markets in there. But you get Trae Young, he's super marketable. If the Pistons end up in there, like you get Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, that's a fun team. The Bucks don't play on Christmas this year, so maybe this is their opportunity to kind of steal back some of that national spotlight. And then this Knicks team or the Magic are a team that have been coming on for a couple of years. So you either get a really fun Magic team that gets an opportunity to kind of cut their teeth in a playoff type scenario, or you get the Knicks that need big game experience for a team that hasn't been together that long. I think it's great.
Yeah, NBA Cup. I'm in on. I think there's tweaks that need to be made because I think while the math can be fun, it's also sometimes infuriating and can lead to. And I can totally understand and see people being like, you know what, this is too much math. I'm out. Right? Like I don't need this because I think it is relatively easy to grasp because it is like if you like the World Cup, people can get into the World Cup and it's very easy to kind of just even for that little bit stretch of time understand it. But what they do that the NBA isn't doing right now is everybody in those groups is kind of playing at the same time, right? And I guess because they have, groups of 5, that's where it doesn't really work. And so now that I'm realizing it's actually groups of 5, my idea of what I think could help the league is probably not actually going to work because you have 3 groups of 5. But as I was watching, because they've had basketball on all day today, right? So we're recording this the day after Thanksgiving. It's Thursday. NBA takes the entire day off, right? So in my mind, I think they got to find a way to get this to a point where they can almost own the day after Christmas as the final group day, right? Where in the morning,
Thanksgiving.
The day after Thanksgiving. Sorry, yeah. The day after Thanksgiving, they can kind of own that day, right? As this is the, Eliminator Friday or something to that effect, where you have everybody playing and you kind of know, because if you know all the final scenarios going into it, now you maybe stagger those 15, like they do every once in a while with the NBA crunch time, where they do the staggered 15-minute starts. And I love when that just lines up. And so I'm catching the last 5 minutes of every single game that I want to. I'm catching the beginning of every game that I want to, and I'm catching the end of every game that I want to. And I'm locked in on my team in the meantime. And so you kind of would get this really unique experience. And you could stagger it where you have the East in the morning, because they started games today at noon, right? So you have noon, 12:15, 12:30, 12:45, 1, so on and so forth. You take care of the East during the day, then boom, 4 or 5 o'clock, whatever it is, when that wraps up, then you have the West taking over for the rest of the afternoon, right? And so I think if they can find a way, and it's just tough with the 3 groups of 5, because I think with all these different scenarios, like going into the game, how confusing was it with Drew and Abby trying to break down whatever this plus 16 was needed to happen?
I honestly think you did a better job than they did.
Well, because there was a scenario in which that could have mattered, but it was only if like multiple teams lost that were already up by 20 points, right? So it was just really difficult to follow. And so I think they need to find a way to kind of condense this. I also, just from I don't really love the whole Tuesday, Friday thing. Like, it's kind of weird that like you're playing the same team twice in 1 week, only one game is a cup day, like so on and so forth. I would kind of rather, let's just block out 2 weeks. These 2 weeks are the NBA Cup weeks. Every single game you're tuning into has something to do with the standings, and then find a way to try to make it so that the last 2 days are known as eliminator days, and that you already know all the scenarios kind of going into it, so that you're super in. And like, think about right now, if because the Celtics have to wait on these other games, but let's say the Celtics were finishing up just before a few other games, and they know that maybe that Sam Hauser shot is what gets them in to the next round, and we get a video of them all huddled up in the locker room, or if they were in the TD Garden, they're all watching on the Jumbotron, and they win, and they just like go nuts for Sam Hauser because he didn't have a great game, hits this massive shot, and now you're getting all this other material from it. Like, I think there's a way to make it more. It feels a little disjointed. I like it, but it just doesn't feel connected because there's so much regular season mixed in, and maybe that will feel different over time. But I feel right now it's a little disjointed, but overall I'm in. I like it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. So is your idea to have the final week be the day before Thanksgiving and then the day after Thanksgiving, let football do its thing on Thanksgiving? Because I saw you tweeting out that NBA Crunch Time missed an opportunity to actually own the night before Thanksgiving, right? They did have Crunch Time going. I thought the Crunch Time package was still great. They just didn't like stagger the times. Right. So I'm wondering if they own the final week is the Wednesday and the Friday. So they a week that has long been a football week now becomes a football and basketball week, because the NFL is kind of already doing that to the NBA, right? Like anytime there's
So
an
fight back a
opportunity,
little bit instead of cowering away, fight back. Like so
yeah,
this
I
would be
like
to the
this.
point, Greg,
I like this
is
a lot.
like, so maybe Wednesday is Western Conference eliminator night, right? Like that's the Western Conference pool play where it's going to, all the scenarios, staggered 15 minutes. We got crunch time. We got, the Scott Hansen of the NBA who's breaking down every scenario, what the point differential is, and then take a break Thursday, let the NFL have their day. Friday, you come back and it's the East eliminator day, and you have the same type of environment. Like, I think there's little things like that. And also just stop with the courts. I'm sorry. The courts are gross. We're not going to get into that now, but there's like 4 different piss yellow courts that I just don't understand. Like, they're just horrible looking. Every time I'm watching NBA Cup game, my wife doesn't care when I'm watching other games. She'll stop by and go, "What is this?" Like, it's just very unappealing, but use the retro court. The retro courts are cool. They've done some really great work around the NBA here. And see, we got a comment here. I like the final Cup day being Black Friday. Seems very marketable. I'm not sure they can schedule 2 solid weeks of Cup games, though. I agree. I think that's probably out, but I think trying to condense all of the final days into those 2 events, Wednesday before Thanksgiving and then Friday, Black Friday right after. I think that's kind of doable.
Would you be okay with black courts?
With black courts, I don't actually. I mean, like the Nets court.
Black
If you watch some of their game
on
today, it was like grayish black or gray and black was kind of the theme. It wasn't bad. Like there's a couple of courts, like the Hornets court was, but the Hornets, like they just have like the best colors, right? Like the Hornets logo and like everything for them kind of works. By the way, and I guess it's not really going to matter as much, but the end of that game was pretty fun between them and the Knicks, where I think it was Josh Green in the corner with like 3.5 seconds left, down 4, hit a 3, but it literally took all 4 seconds for it to go down. And so the Knicks only ended up winning by 1. May not matter. We'll see how this plays out. But yeah, it looks like Phil's into the idea. So I appreciate that, Phil. Appreciate you, man, for tuning in here.
I'm digging this, man. I'm digging it. I think there's a chance. We're on Bleacher Report. This might get aggregated, and then we end up Adam Silver calls you up and wants to know if you want to slap your name on it. Will Weir, come work for the NBA and Green with Envy, sponsored by the NBA now.
Hey, I would love to have that. Let's make that happen. So, NBA Cup, man. I think it's a success. I think there's a few little tweaks that need to be made so that it's just. I think they can get to the point where it's even more meaningful than it is right now. Yeah. They're getting close. They've got something, though. They've got something. Joe Mazzulla's into it. They've got coaches bought in. They've got players bought in. So I think they're on the right path. So we'll see what happens here. So Tuesday night, as a reminder, tune in, Celtics fans. Magic, Knicks. Magic have to win that game. Non-negotiable. Bucks, Pistons, tune in. Enjoy yourself. We'll see what happens with the final score. We'll figure out the point differential. That's going to be the avenue for the Celtics to get into the next round, and then we'll see what that looks like if and when that happens. But Greg, this was a fun one. This is a great follow-up to Thanksgiving. Little bit of dessert here. Get some of the leftovers. Watch some Black Friday basketball. I had a great time. Hopefully you did too. Appreciate everybody joining us here live on the Bleacher Report app, as well as those of you that are joining on YouTube and Twitter. Again, for those of you that aren't familiar, we are the Green with Envy podcast. We cover Celtics front to back, whatever you guys need from a Celtics point of view. We are your source here. And of course, we always love to look around the NBA at all the happenings and dwellings around the league. Greg, anything you got here before we send everybody out here to go enjoy the rest of their holiday weekend?
You got 2 minutes? Because I got a question for you. I just realized we didn't talk about Jaylen Brown's dunk, the Jaylen on Jaylen crime that happened in the game. And I got a question for you. Is Jaylen Brown the best in-game dunker in basketball?
Oof, good question. So first of all, amazing dunk, which kind of helped downplay that it wasn't a great second half for Jaylen Brown, but unbelievable dunk. Is he the best in-game? This is a really good question.
How about this? Top 5 in-game dunker. Because I think the best in-game dunker is probably John Morant.
I was gonna say John Ant probably are the two that jump to my list as the top 2. I think I'd have to really think about it. Ja's, I think number 1. I think Ja's got to be the guy, even though I think he's had less dunks this year than normal. I feel like I've heard that recently. I've got to look into that.
A handful of games.
Yeah. That's a part of it too as well. But he even makes layups cool. Did you see when he had those 2 360 layups earlier in the year? Like Ja's just, I don't know, Ja's crazy what he does in the air. But Jaylen's in the top. I would say off the top of my head, Jaylen being top 5 very much is likely the case.
I think you got to go John Morant, Anthony Edwards, Jaylen Brown. I might throw Jalen Johnson in there. I feel like Jalen
I
Johnson,
thought about him as well too. He had a great game today for the Hawks. I like
catching
Jalen Johnson, man.
bodies.
He's good. He's good.
Trey
I'm trying to think of who
Murphy,
else would be
I
in
might
there.
throw
Obi
in there.
Toppin. Obi Toppin's a sneaky one that's pretty
Yeah.
good in-game dunker as well.
I mean, he's East Baying in games. Like, who goes through the legs in games like it's nothing? I'm trying to think of anybody else that might be. I'm just like going through all the teams right now. Nobody on the Lakers. Nobody on the Spurs. Thunder. Jalen Williams is a decent in-game dunker. Yeah, I think that might be it.
I mean,
dude.
Giannis is just
Derrick
powerful,
Jones
right?
Jr. Yeah, Giannis. Derrick Jones Jr. is pretty great, but he's like all off of alley-oops.
Dude,
So I think that's a pretty good 5 right there.
The Rockets got somebody, whether it's Amen Thompson or Jalen Green, like they're going to be in that mix as well. But this is a good conversation. I like this. We're gonna have to circle back on this.
Are we saying 3 Jalen's in the top 5? Jalen Green, Jalen Johnson, Jaylen Brown.
Don't get me started on the whole Jalen conversation. You could make such an unbelievable team of Jalen's across the NBA. It's unreal how good a team of Jalen's would be.
Just most athletic name in the world right now.
Yeah, shout out to Jalen Rose. You've started a movement, my friend. It's undeniable. The movement, the time of the Jalen's is upon us. But yeah, unbelievable dunk by Jaylen Brown. Got to strap in. Does he call it buckle up? Buckle up, as he's calling it. Got to buckle up here for Jaylen Brown. Big win for the Celtics today. We'll see what it means for the NBA Cup. 138-129. Big game on Sunday, Greg. Celtics Cavs. We got to lock in on that one here. Celtics Cavs playing first place in the Eastern Conference on the line. We'll see what happens. Appreciate everybody joining us here. Bleacher Report, YouTube. Come follow us. Come rock with us. We are the Green with Envy podcast. We will catch you all later. Have a great weekend. Peace.